So thank you so much for the nice introduction. So welcome to our panel, Transformation of Media Markets. So I'm very glad to have both of you here. They are really great partners to talk to. Lots of knowledge you have. And the 25 minutes with such a very important topic seems to be a little bit like a speed session, but I think we will get the most out of it. So I would like to start with a question. So how would you both describe the current situation of the media industry in 3 words? Sabine first.
Wow, in 3 words, huh? Changing, challenging, and also growing. We just need to capture the growth, but it's growing.
Yeah, that's a good word, growth. We're very familiar with this at Burda. So, and Sean, what would you say?
Yeah, I said to you earlier that I should probably be a little more optimistic, because this is the optimism and courage. DLD 19. I would say resistant to change, actually. If I would think about it, I think everybody likes change. They like to think that they're good at it. But whenever change happens to somebody individually, usually that's where it stops. So that's where transformation comes in, because this topic's about transformation. So bringing people through that change is very difficult. Something we know very well at RGA, having transformed the company 4 or 5 times in our history. Yeah.
So I agree, and I think one of the huge topics as well are data. We talk lots about big data, now it's smart data. So Amazon announced that they sold over 100 million Alexa devices and therefore are able to generate even more data. So can enough data be generated through traditional media channels, Sabine?
Well, that's a tricky question. First of all, I mean, it's very important to have data, and there are existing different kind of data. So we're talking a lot about quantity of data, but not quality of data. And it's not only because we are here in an optimism event. I really believe that it's possible to generate a lot of data, quantity and quality, which I think is much more important, through collaboration and even as a classic media company, even in Germany. But you need to add to the data question the reach question. So first of all, I believe in media mix models, that when you want to reach your consumer, you need to be very fast and you need massive reach. And with that, you need to combine clever data, right? You need to do targetable ads that you really can target and be efficient and effective. And this together, I think this is the main path for success. So how do you do that? We, for example, started very early to invest into e-commerce assets through media for equity models. We didn't have that cash at that time. And now we have, we call it Newcom, e-commerce business area, which is really big and very powerful for us, which provides us smart data. We founded NetID together with United Internet, with RTL, with now Zalando and Otto are partners to really combine the data we don't own, but you get access to really build smart advertising products. And last but not least, we invested into ad tech companies. So I think you need to do a lot of things. To sum it up, you need to have a very clear path on which kind of data you want to be in, and this all needs to be transparent and GDPR conform. And yes, we need to compete, but I'm very optimistic with a smart data path where you have not only socio-demographics and geolocation, where you have intent and interest data, you can be very successful.
But this is more business-to-business orientated, as I learned. So, and Sean, you are of one of the biggest creative agency networks in the world. So how important is data when it comes to products and, of course, to marketing?
Oh, sure. I think for us, it starts with data literacy. I think there's a lot of data being collected. I think companies would always want more data to make decisions, go back 20, 30, 40 years. It's just too expensive and too time-consuming to do. So I think now that it's easier and cheaper, there's tremendous amounts of it. But do your people actually understand how to use that to make decisions? And do you actually distribute that information throughout the company to allow people to make decisions? And for us, it's extremely important that we have that data at people's fingertips, and we have experts working side by side with our creative teams. We have a large marketing sciences group. We have media connections people who work with our creative teams to develop ideas. The reason is because that data is coming in all the time. If you think about, we do a tremendous amount of social media marketing. So you have to actually monitor and understand what's happening in real time. But at the end of the day, an individual is still making a choice. They're still making a creative choice. And you have to give them that information to be able to do that. So that's the biggest gap I've seen. I think there's a bit of fear around the data, and especially with some creative teams and companies and agencies thinking that it might spoil the creative instinct, but actually it just helps fuel it. So we embrace it pretty wholeheartedly, and I think that's what helps us stand out a bit. Yeah.
But you are working now for the consumer, more or less, or for the companies who wants to reach all the consumers. Do you have an example how you generate data?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at it. We would look at the world in terms of, well, how do we use this to help spark and fuel creativity? Example might be our work we've done with Uber. So you talk about data, tremendous amount of data, a digital-first company. How do you use that in a creative and fun way? We've worked with them to develop a campaign where we took an individual's series of rides throughout the whole year. So we'd look at that entire year. We made a custom music video based on that, those rides they had. So it was their year in Uber, the places they went, the places they frequented the most, the amount of miles they drove, and it became something entertaining. On the other side, we also look at data and how to use it in some sort of useful, utilitarian way. We've worked with Nike for 16 years. I started my career at RGA on Nike 15 years ago. And we've built a lot of platforms for them over the course of our history. We did a pilot recently in Germany where we created a digital concierge through WhatsApp. I was trying to help runners find better routes to run in their city, find the right gear for the moment. And the way that we got that information is they logged into their Nike Plus account. We had their running history. And we used that data then to provide them with suggestions. So when customers opt in and there's actual trust involved in that transaction, you can do it. If you don't have the trust, then you're going to be in trouble. I know it's a topic that has been talked about quite a bit over the past couple of days. Some brands do, some brands don't. I think everyone has to make their own choice.
That's very interesting, I think, although it's a trust topic and the consumer has to have it. But coming back probably to Newcom, because you have also bought many exciting brands. Could you tell us a little bit about this? So Newcom, you have also for consumers very good platforms.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we invested in matchmaking companies like Parship and Elite Partner, Verivox. We have Flaconi, which is, I call it online supermarket for fragrances and cosmetics. So we generate, of course, data also in these companies, obviously to bring the best product and offer to the market. But I mean, if you look what we did, when you look at Amazon, for example, Amazon is a huge company, started with e-commerce, and later then they went into the entertainment, into the media field. And I don't want to compare us directly with Amazon, but we are very, we started as a traditional media company many, many years ago. Then we entered, I would say 8, 9 years ago into the e-commerce business. And now you have to work on the synergies between these two areas, right? So first of all, I think it is a quite clever strategy, and I love it because we have synergies between these two departments as well as to our creative department where we produce content, even for Amazon and Netflix and of course for our own channels. So you collect massive data in here, but what you said is you need to have the ability to really work on that, and you need to have the courage really to bring out the right products, and sometimes it needs time, right? So you need investments, and you need to do testing on products. But obviously, this e-commerce, we call it Newcom companies, help us a lot, not to only to understand the consumer, also to collect the intent and interest data we need for our advertising field, which is still, a very big business source for our company.
Well, that's very interesting because we have two different points of view probably, because you come really from a digital media company getting now into e-commerce, and you, I think you're a consultant for so many years for so many cute brands, so that's far away. So the question is just like the modern societies, today's media landscape is very fragmented. So consumer get their content via various channels and diverse suppliers. So what will an established media brand have to offer to this kind of fragmented consumers to stay relevant? Sabine?
Yeah, first of all, you have to be there where the consumer is. This is a no-brainer, but I honestly have to say that. Fragmentation is an issue. Fragmentation is an issue because, as I said at the beginning, you need massive reach, you need to be fast, you need to bring your product on shelf, or even in the mind, if it's a virtual shelf on e-commerce, to the mind of the consumer, and therefore you don't have that much time. So you need to really do a clever strategy to really get as much reach as you need, and then combine it with targetable ads, with effective and efficient data strategies as well. That is one thing. The other thing is, and I just want to go into your direction, I'm a big believer in good creatives. And as we all know, it's still 49% of the success of an advertising, even if it's digital or is it TV or is it print, depends on the creativity. And so therefore the creative part is very important, and data can help, but it's not always the only answer. And therefore the mixture of having really the right marketing strategy distributed to the really all the channels you need in a very clever way, and then having the right creative, that is the path for success, and that's what you need today to be successful as a advertising partner. Otherwise, you won't survive.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think?
Well, I want to talk about the Amazon thing for a minute because it's interesting. I think the fragmentation is true to some degree, but there's a lot of consolidation, as we've all seen with Facebook, Google, Amazon. Amazon's pretty fascinating in a way where it's become a big media marketplace, and actually we've built a consultancy around helping clients figure out how to market their products on Amazon, decide which ones they sell, which ones they don't. So it's become a pretty interesting part of our business. So that part's fascinating because there's new challenges to figure out, new problems to solve. So we enjoy that, and lots of brands come to us for those things. I think in terms of like guidance, right? You talked about go where the consumer is, of course, right? People forget that sometimes. I'd say you have to go where your consumer is and find them, of course. But where's your consumer that's going to be buying your products in 2 to 3 years? Where are they now? Are you on those smaller platforms? Are you experimenting with things now? So you can actually build a relationship with that consumer in 2 to 3, 4 years. Most companies don't, I'll tell you the truth, because they're actually looking at that next quarter of results that they have to go fulfill. So there's more experimentation that has to happen, and that often gets shelved because it doesn't show a return. So that's something we encourage our clients to do a lot of. I think the other piece is authenticity. Social media has forced brands to be more out there, more direct, and more responsive, and essentially show up more authentic. So you have to decide who you are as a brand. Not every brand has an amazing story to tell, right? So we know that, but you have to decide who you are and send that message out there. And the last piece related to that is just how do you be useful? How do you actually engage in a way that's useful, right? And we all know the ads that are annoying. We all know the ads that work. But it's not just all about that. Like we have a campaign that we've done with Samsung. We work with them in 6 different offices across the world. This is a campaign we did in the US called Samsung Make. And it's directed towards the existing Samsung owners and helping them get more out of their phones. So how do I take better photographs? How do I shoot better videos? And how do I create better comedy or music videos? And we work with influencers on that program, and it's all done through YouTube. And it's co-created. It's not the brand telling the influencer to do. It's co-created with those products. And that we're seeing great success with that. So that becomes a useful piece of content as opposed to an advertisement.
Yeah. So and maybe to emphasize one point you said, because I think that's very interesting. In times of Alexa, and voice recognition, strong brands are so important, more than ever, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you really need to be aware what is my brand strategy and to invest long-term in your brand. So that's what I see very often with clients, with advertisers. They want to have short-term results, but they don't invest into brand heritage, and what does the brand stand for. And you have to do different strategies there.
Yeah.
And I mean, and as well, we can see like Facebook, Google, and as well, I think Amazon, but definitely Facebook and Google. They did a massive campaign on branding. They still do at the moment, especially on traditional media, but leave it out. So, yeah, newspapers, TV, and so on. 75% of the spending still on classic media. But beside that, they do massive branding campaigns. And that's very interesting from my perspective, that we don't see that in the industry at the moment, right?
Well, it's still a way to reach people. I think some of these newer companies, they have actually less mature marketing departments because they haven't had to market
Agree.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, though at the end it's all about brand, it's about storytelling, I guess. So would you still recommend, or which mix do you recommend? Do you recommend still print and television, for example?
We're not a standalone media agency. I think we use media to help enhance the creative work because everything's been very, really spread out, right? So all the different platforms, there's different techniques and different ways of working. So we build our media teams inside of our creative teams. I think every client I see has their own methods, really. So we actually look for innovation opportunities. So when we work with a publisher, we work with a platform, we go to them, we ask them, what can we do first with this client? What's the thing that we can do that nobody else can do? Because those are the things you start to then can stand out from. And I'll tell you, it's like there's a lot less opportunities to innovate on these platforms. There used to be in the beginning, but now we've fallen into these kind of formats, which I think is not a good thing for creativity. So we always find ways to work with partners around that.
Yeah.
But I'd say I'd implore you guys, too, to think about how to work with your advertising partners to do new things.
Well, I think that's the way you work as well, and we as Burda do the same. But today we heard also Scott Galloway on stage. He said that Amazon Media Group will be one of the biggest media companies in the world by 2020, or they already are. So the question is really, which are the key steps or the strategy for European media companies that they can survive against the big four? So Sabine, what would you say? What will help? What is your strategy for the future?
I know it's a bold statement, but first of all, I would say there are only the big three, to be honest, from my perspective. Of course, Amazon is a big threat. And what we see is they're growing and growing and growing. And the dependency of our clients on the one hand side and on the other hand side coming to us and ask for strategies, right? The same for you, I think. How can we be more independent is encouraging. But beside that, I think it starts with collaboration. I think we are in a decade of collaboration, and it should start it starts now, but it should be much faster. So first of all, I mean, look at the media landscape in Germany. We're not working together. We are not working together. I mean, we at the ProSiebenSat.1, we started with a very close collaboration with you guys from Burda, which is fantastic. I think it's a great step. But that must be much bigger. We need to collaborate on content, because that is so expensive. We need to collaborate on talents. We need to collaborate on advertising technology and data, and then bring it to the next level and bring it to the European basis. We, of course, started collaborations with TF1 in France, with Mediaset in Italy, with ITV in UK, but that's not enough, right? So I think in Europe, we really need to collaborate much more together and don't see each other as competitors. And with that strategy, I think we have a big advantage because we have trusted and GDPR-conform environment, which a lot of clients would love to book and work there, as well as talents. And the second thing is, when I look from the content side, I think maybe not the only strategy, but for us the strategy is to work on local content, and to work on live content, because these are the areas where Amazon and Netflix won't go in that deep. I mean, they do local content, but not in the depth, and obviously we know our consumers much better, I think, from a heritage of how do you entertain, how do you inform people. And therefore, I think we have a lot of good possibilities, but there's work to do, massive work to do.
Yeah, but I think that's really good. I think we should collaborate, and probably that's what you need in your agency. But you have a global network on your own, so I think you have 18 agencies worldwide who belongs, or offices who belongs to RGA. And one thing I thought was very interesting is the way you work. Can you tell us a little bit about your Bauhaus philosophy? Because Bauhaus
definitely.
is 100 years old, and I think it's a little bit the way we should work together as media companies, but how do you live this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for us, we've built 18 offices over 41 years. Our founder and chairman, Bob Greenberg, is here. He spoke a couple days ago. One of those principles was each of these offices was built organically. We didn't acquire anything. And if you're a creatively driven business, it's very hard to acquire a company because you're bringing another culture into your culture. They rarely work. They rarely work in our business. So from the inside, we've built an ability for all of our offices to work together. So we've built a network. The underlying infrastructure to that is something we call RJOS. It's a series of tools we've been building for 15 years, actually. Collaboration tools, finance tools, all the things that make companies tied together, and we use those to collaborate. So each project that we run, there's at least 2 offices on it. 20% of the work that happens in the US region happens cross-office, so we're very collaborative with video conferencing, other things. So we know how to do that internally, right? I think that's important to point out. I think philosophically, what we believe is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which is a core Bauhaus philosophy. So when you have teams working together, we can adapt and use an amazing creative team in Brazil, if that's what the Samsung client wants. I can use an incredible design team that I have in Berlin. So that creates incredible opportunities for collaboration. The other piece, I think, which is fascinating about the Bauhaus and part of what Bob and his brother, when they founded the company, thought about is this idea of bringing the crafts together with the fine arts. And when that was done 100 years ago, that was seen as a kind of a controversy, and there were protests about bringing fine art and craft together, which seems insane now. But the philosophy was to do that, and also to actually think about how do I bring the artist and craftsman into the machine age, the term they were using back then, 1919, right? So what is more relevant than that now? If you think about all the quantum computing, the AI things that we're seeing, it's the same exact philosophy. How do you bring technologists and media people and data people in with the creative process? So for us, it's that continual renewal. So if we can do that ourselves, we can much more easily work with other clients, work with their clients' partners. So we often have 4 to 5 different agencies that we're collaborating with on each client. So that's also been a pretty unique competitive advantage of ours. Yeah.
That sounds very interesting. Probably for a traditional media company, it's a little bit tougher to transform, or the challenges are more different in a company which exists also for so many years?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we're a very innovative company. A lot of people say that, I know. But we really did build own creative areas, own companies. Actually, we were so fragmented with all these innovation hubs. I would say we should work on a little bit more of a consolidation of areas. But obviously, it's great to have talents all over the world and to have areas where you can work with, for example, the US people and the Asian people to get new influence, to get diversity into your ideas, into your creation. So we have the possibility as a German-speaking based company and German-speaking focused company at the moment, only with our creative and content teams. But they sit worldwide, and they are in the US, they are in Israel, they are in Canada. So there is a good way of working together, but it can, as always, be much better. Yeah.
So the last questions, Sean, what do you think? What should be the goals for 2019 for media companies in general?
I think you can sum it up, just do the right thing. Do the right thing.
And what is the right thing?
I mean, there's transparency for the relationships you have with your brands and customers that work with you, and the pricing and how it works and the data, right? And there's the transparency with the relationship you have with the consumer, which is the big topic we've all talked about here today. I mean, it's really a human thing. I think it's less infrastructure, more do the right thing.
Yeah.
And Sabine, what would you say?
Well, I would say don't be afraid. Be aware of your chances, and inform and entertain, but do it truthfully and reliable. This is what we do in Europe, so we should do that. We should continue with that.
So 2019 will be thrilling and exciting again, I guess. And thank you so much for this nice talk. And thank you very much.